What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. Pokémon Detective Pikachu has opened in theaters and is the world's first big-budget live-action Pokémon movie. We've had our fair share of animated films, sure, but this is the first time that we could actually see what it would be like if these creatures lived with us in our world. Even if maybe you don't care for how they looked in this way, you have to admit that the notion is exciting, if for nothing else than the fact that people are talking about Pokémon again who normally wouldn't. But it did get me thinking, what other aspects of Pokémon could they turn into a film? Which Pokémon stories could they make into a live-action movie? Number 6. Pokémon Origins. This one is sort of the obvious answer because you could definitely go the route of retelling the classic story of Pokémon, in the same way that the Pokémon Origins special did. It didn't cover every aspect in detail, but it did show the major beats of not only Kanto, but showed the basics of what it means to be on a Pokémon journey for any game. Detective Pikachu did a good job of integrating Pokémon into everyday life, but didn't necessarily portray what it's like to play a Pokémon game to those that have never done so, or even those that haven't played since Gen 1. And to be fair, that is what their intentions seem to be, to have a completely separate experience from standard gameplay, which worked for me, because I've played the games time and again, so I got all of the jokes and references and things, but while some jokes are universally funny, others do require more knowledge of the source material. You can't know what expectations they're subverting if you don't have a basis in that universe. So what better way to start than with a movie like this for a baseline comparison? And also, if they ever do decide to go this route, they wouldn't have to specifically use the Kanto story arc. I know many people say that they're tired of Kanto pandering at this point, so you could adapt the live-action Johto storyline, or even the Unova story that many people have in mind as more interesting and outside of the box compared to most. I would certainly like to see a more standard type of Pokemon story in this realistic setting, and there is obviously some market for recreating stories that we already know. Just look at the success of Disney. But I can see how that might not be as appealing creatively, so they could merely take certain aspects of the original stories they find more enticing. And speaking of, number 5, Lavender Town. I'll be totally honest, I'm a huge wimp. I hate scary movies in general. They are just not my thing. There are even episodes of Doctor Who that were too much for me. So I was utterly shocked when a live-action scary Pokemon story appealed to me in any way, but I do think that they could really tap into something here. The Lavender Town story was scary enough for many players back when it was flat and brightly lit, so imagine the impact it would have to include real people in a dimly lit graveyard tower. The wrinkle of not being able to even properly see the ghosts at first would add to the mystery and require bringing in some experts, maybe professional ghost Pokemon hunters. And of course there's the evil Team Rocket members that keep getting in your way. But that's nothing compared to the creepy channelers sitting on the ground wailing nonsense. That certainly adds to the atmosphere. I just get nervous already thinking about sneaking around the headstones and have a realistic gaseous apparition attack, flailing its tongue everywhere. Not to mention that all of the Gen 1 ghosts are poisonous, making them dangerous and corrosive. And not to get too inside the industry here, but horror movies are generally extremely profitable due to their ability to work with smaller budgets. Say a Lavender Town movie only got a budget of $10 million. Even if it doesn't land with audiences, it would still recoup its money back with ease, since even opening at around 10 million, which is considered a really terrible performance, would still break even. So it would be a smart business decision, while at the same time showing a different side of this traditionally kid-friendly franchise. And it wouldn't have to be Lavender Town specifically if you wanted to do something different. There are plenty of scary stories in the Pokemon world. Maybe even enough to set up a whole shared universe of Poke horror. But I chose Lavender Town for its sweet and heartbreaking ending. I feel like I might be able to sit through a scary movie like that if it all comes from a close familial bond at the end. Number 4. Pokken Tournament. The reason Detective Pikachu was chosen to loosely adapt is because it was an interesting premise for a side game. And being a side game, it wasn't necessarily as risky to take liberties. So that's where I believe Pokken Tournament could fit in nicely as well. While the metagame for Pokken is quite active, I doubt many of them would be upset if you didn't follow what little story the game had. But it also provides greater emphasis on Pokemon battling, which is a major gameplay function for the majority of the franchise, even if it is a slightly varied version. Just imagine any fighting movie that you've seen. The scrappy underdog has to claw his way to the top and gets his chance to prove himself in the big fight. It'd be exactly the same just as a partnership between a trainer and one Pokemon. It'd probably have to be Lucario or something, since he's a big fan favorite and a playable character in the game. If anybody's ever seen that movie, Real Steel, then it's pretty much exactly that. Just replace the robots with Pokemon, and replace Hugh Jackman with... Actually, you could just keep Hugh Jackman. That'd be pretty awesome. But you could even see Pokemon fighting in these organized matches outside of the roster from the Pokken game, which would be a beautiful treat. You could also see some unorthodox usage of moves or combinations, like we sometimes see in contests in the anime. That kind of creativity would make the movie both familiar, but also exciting, with new possibilities in what Pokemon combat could be. And if they did borrow from the story of Pokken, it'd be pretty amazing to see a Shadow Mewtwo in a big-budget movie. I just feel that the concept for Pokken Tournament basically being an uplifting style sports movie that just so happens to be filled with elemental monsters would fit perfectly with using a beloved established intellectual property, but cherry-picking from the side games so as not to upset the hardcore fans. Number 3. Pokemon Ranger. Speaking of side games, this is another big one. To my knowledge, the Pokemon Ranger series was the first that you could play on the same game console as the mainline games that was in the same continuity. These people lived with Pokemon just like in the core games, they just interacted with them a bit differently. And actually their lifestyle even leans towards the way it was depicted in the Detective Pikachu movie, with more just hanging out. And that's one of the advantages I see to the Pokemon Ranger property to be adapted. It already fits within the world established of the live-action movie universe. And it doubly fits because of its lack of Pokemon battling. If the Pokken Tournament idea is too focused on battle, then the Ranger concept would be your perfect alternative. Pokemon Rangers don't actually catch Pokemon, they simply use their capture stylers to sort of borrow wild Pokemon and use their abilities to temporarily help them. This essentially means that you could have a movie full of people undertaking daring rescues and doing their best of fighting natural disasters, but with Pokemon. It'd be a fresh take on the world, but one that could easily fit within the movie they just made, to the point that I could see characters from Detective Pikachu sliding right into the Ranger world, and vice versa. And honestly, this is an aspect of the Pokemon franchise that a number of people might have missed out on, because I personally only got a copy of the first Pokemon Ranger game like 2 weeks ago. But I've enjoyed what I've played so far, so why not make it into a movie? So long as it's not like Power Rangers. Just the simple prospect of using any Pokemon around you to solve a problem could result in some breathtaking surprises, such as the luck of coming across a pseudo-legendary. Or it could result in comedy of only having a Wingull nearby and using tools ill-suited for the task. This is currently an untapped portion of the Pokemon movie world, but it is one that I think might be even better suited to live-action movies than the mainline games themselves. Number 2. Ultra Recon Squad. One of my favorite genres in any medium is science fiction. I always love me a good Star Wars, Trek, or Gate. But what if we combined that with the Pokemon franchise? Really, the story would need very little retooling from the games. Maybe just not in the Alola region, but even still it could be. All you really need is to have some space researcher, it could still be Professor Burnett in this case, and their work is either looked down on or flat out ridiculed. Until the aliens come. Once the Ultra Beasts start coming through, those in charge will have no choice but to go to the one person considered an expert in the field. And she'll be able to do more now that she has better resources. Along with her cast of supporting characters, obviously. And that's when the Ultra Recon Squad comes in. These people from the other side team up with our scientists, but I'll leave it up to you whether it's to try and understand the aliens, or if we just need to fight them to death. Because honestly, I could go either way with live-action Ultra Beasts. But since they're teaming up with the Ultra Recon Squad, that obviously means that the regular people will get to suit up in their own super cool spacesuit outfits and travel through an Ultra wormhole. You'll get to maybe travel through a bunch of different areas in Ultra Space, and finally help out the squad in Ultra Megalopolis, with Necrozma, I guess, and then that gets them something that they can use back on Earth to get rid of the Ultra Beasts. And you could even have like a post-credits scene of a Professor Burnett from another universe, to reveal that aspect of Ultra Wormholes as well, setting up a sequel. I personally don't really think that Ultra Beasts or Ultra Wormholes necessarily flow as well within the Pokemon games, but as a big sci-fi action flick with aliens, outer space, and even alternate dimensions, I think it would be a great possibility for a Pokemon movie offshoot. Number 1. Looker. In thinking about what possible portions of the Pokemon universe I would most like to see in live action, I kept coming back to the evil teams. It'd be amazing to see a clash between Team Aqua and Team Magma for real, or to see Team Galactic trying to round up all the legendary Pokemon. And the best way I could think of to get to some or all of these potential antagonists is through Looker. Looker has been with the Pokemon series since Gen 4, and keeps showing up as a member of the International Police on various assignments, mostly crossing paths with various evil teams in the Pokemon world. But Looker's travels also have him meeting other characters from the main series of games, and the beauty is that they're maybe not the most important characters to the franchise, so you could still include them in live action if you wanted to as an Easter egg of sorts. And the good part about that is that many people wouldn't be so mad about casting a C or D list character out of the games, like they probably would be for putting anyone other than their ideal choice for, say, Cynthia or something like that. We've gotten a taste of this sort of thing already in the Pokemon Generations series, where Looker busted into the Viridian Gym with an amazing Pokemon Strike team, and further investigating Giovanni through his son Silver in the Johto region. We're also treated to him cleaning up the remnants of Team Galactic and Team Flare in different parts. It wouldn't even have to be Looker specifically, I guess, but the International Police would give you that in to go clash with any and all criminal organizations around the world, in all of the regions that we've already seen before. Or even brand new places like Rhyme City from Detective Pikachu, if that's the path they want to continue on. The movie struck an interesting chord of paying homage to the source material while still doing its own thing. So a good way to further that would be to have Looker, or someone from the International Police, hunt down different evil teams around the globe. Can you imagine the hype around just seeing the costumes in real life? But then also showing all of their classic Pokemon in the new realistic style? Even just having some kind of Mirror B Easter egg would make the whole thing worth it for longtime fans, and I think could really let them play around in one of the coolest ways for this mega franchise. Those are just some of what I believe would be suitable movies to continue this live-action Pokemon trend. And just think, if they do have more successful Pokemon movies, they could even start to do this with other Nintendo franchises and cross them over in a Super Smash Bros. Film. Well, maybe we'll just stick to Nintendo for now. And if they actually do end up making any of these ideas, just send me a check, and you're more than welcome for the inspiration. Which live-action Pokemon movies would you most like to see? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And we'll see you around next time!